Good morning, this is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the pre-market webinar for the morning of Tuesday, the 23rd of June. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing and learn from it, transfer it to your own charts, and I'm not here to refute trading signals. This is a video for paying subscribers at chartingthemarkets.substack.com. It's published on YouTube after a delay of 24 hours. All right, great. Let's have a look at ES. Now, on Wednesday, I think last week, possibly Thursday, I was talking about the possibility that we might be forming bull flags here. Now, there are two possible flags I'm thinking of. The one I was talking about was actually mainly a larger bull flag from the all-time high, which would have the possibility of getting down below the early June lows, and I've drawn in that possibility here in the red lines, and the smaller lines here, the smaller pattern I've drawn in here is if we are forming a bull flag from this high, this last high here after that initial drop. So I'm thinking we're forming one or the other. If we're forming the smaller flag, then we could turn up at any time. If we are forming the larger flag, unless it is a triangle, I'd be looking for a lower low below here, and I've drawn an idealized trend line target, which would be in about the 7,200 area. I think we're likely to do one or the other. I think in both options, subject to news, then I'm thinking this is a bull flag, and we likely retest the highs. And we would see what happened after that. On NQ, I've drawn in basically the same setup. Now, these two are different to the others because, of course, RTY has been making the all-time highs. I was talking about a retest of this high yesterday. We've seen it. This has set up a small double top, which I'm thinking, if we're going with the larger flag scenario, might well play out. We shall see. And get us down below the weekly pivot area. In terms of YM, no obvious setup here. Obviously, you can see a potential option for a smaller flag, but there is no larger flag because we've already taken out that all-time high. And actually, that all-time high would have been these ones. We've taken that out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times already. Looking at DAX, still wondering whether this could be a little level top. Wondering if this could be a larger flag and make a potential lower low. Again, likely as part of a bull flag. ESTX, like Dow, has been making higher highs pretty much throughout. And Nikkei, we had the last stray little sell signal here, and that made target overnight. Not seeing we could be forming a head and shoulders here. I'm just drawing it in just because obviously we're holding this level. At the core, a neckline is basically a support level that is developing in a particular way. So I'm not saying we'd necessarily form a right shoulder here, but I am looking at this support level. If we break below it, the next big support level would be the monthly pivot area 64,108. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. Okay, now first, actually, I want to have a little talk about oil and give us a quick review of where we're up to there. Here, straightforward moves, traffic returns to normal by, June 30. I'll show you that just for the humor, really. That's down 4%. Obviously, there's only a week left, and it would need a week's trading. And you would need a week being back to normal, so really, that's no longer a possibility. I'm a bit surprised it's still at 4%. From now on, I'm just going to be looking at July the 30th and 31st. That actually was fell down to 40%, peaked last week at 63%, and is currently at about 49%. Personally, I think that's very optimistic. I don't think the Iranians are going to open the Strait of Hormuz unless there is a pullback in Lebanon. And at the moment, Israel are being extremely clear that they're not going to pull back in Lebanon. And while Trump is saying that he can control what the Israelis do, I think that is an unproven assertion. And we are waiting to see whether it actually means anything. Certainly the talk from the Israelis and the Netanyahu and the ministers are not suggesting that they're thinking at all of pulling back from Lebanon. So we will see if that delivers anything. If they don't pull back from Lebanon, then chances are the Strait of Hormuz is not going to open. If the Strait of Hormuz doesn't open, then this peace process is largely irrelevant. Because it's unlikely to yield anything. The Iranians have already said that really they don't trust the Americans at all. Why would they? They've been attacked twice during negotiations, last year and this year. And they're mainly concerned in terms of the short-term gains. Short-term gains are that they get to sell a lot of their oil. The sanctions have been lifted on their oil. Apparently, I have read, only in one source though, that they've got something like 150 million barrels a day, barrels of oil on the seas, which can now be delivered to various destinations at full price and without sanctions. Now, I would say that does change the equation in terms of the oil crisis, because if the oil crisis is basically escalating shortage of 6 million barrels a day or so, which is basically reducing stocks worldwide. How many days does that extra 150 million give us? And the answer is, of course, about 25 days. So that actually extends the period potentially before we see a serious oil crisis by 3 to 4 weeks. So that actually has an impact and would be a positive thing, even if the strait stays closed. The other thing really here is, of course, the Iranians want some of their cash. It does appear that they're going to get 12 billion through Qatar this week. Although I had understood that 12 billion had been delivered a couple of weeks ago, but apparently it hadn't. And the Iranians were pretty upfront about saying in interviews that if that was all they got, then as far as they're concerned, the peace process would have been a success. I don't think they're too bothered about actually getting any more from that, because I don't think they trust the US to deliver it anyway. So we will see how that goes, but at the moment, the crisis may be eased by a whole load of Iranian oil hitting the markets, but the Strait of Hormuz, and that might give us another 3 weeks for something better to happen. But in the meantime, nothing particularly good is happening. So we'll come back to oil in a minute, but let's have a look at equities first. Let's have a look at SPX. Okay, SPX, the main thing that happened yesterday from my perspective was we broke back below the daily middle band. And that is significant. We'd broken below it on Wednesday last week. Then we closed back marginally above it on Thursday, and then we broke back below it yesterday. So that was very much not a confirmed break above. Now, the rest of the indices pretty much are holding. Particularly QQQ, but if this expands to the downside, then the flag I'd be talking about, the flag I mentioned last Wednesday, would be A, B, C. That's what I'd be thinking of. So we could then see that lower low, but this was the first step. In terms of the hourly chart, no current divergence, but obviously in terms of the flag here, we would either be looking at a flag from here, or we'd be looking at a larger flag from here. I haven't drawn those in. I'm planning to do a post in a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours, and I'll have them drawn in on the SPX there as well. But I've already drawn it in here on the 15-minute. So that's what I'm thinking we might see here. In terms of the Qs, we're still holding above the daily middle band and pretty well above the daily middle band. But if SPX heads down to that lower low, certainly I'd expect to see Qs lower, but it's obvious that Qs are stronger, and I'd be wondering, I wouldn't necessarily be thinking we'd be taking out this low here at 685. In terms of the hourly chart, no current divergence. We almost made it back up to the all-time high, but not quite. I would be wondering about a triangle, but ideally we'd see a lower low under 685.62. On the 15-minute chart, I have again drawn in the potential larger flag here. If we are going to see a breakdown, I would note that we've also got a nice looking little level bottom here, which would have a target down here at about the 685 area, and that would be a very nice step on the way. If we are going to see that, then of course we've got neutral stats all week apart from a strongly bearish leading day tomorrow. So if we are going to see a big move down to those targets, I'd be leaning towards that being largely completed by the end of the day tomorrow. We shall see. All right, looking at Dyer. Dyer is still holding well above the daily middle band and has continued making new highs, but we have got this nice looking rising wedge, and I am wondering I better move down to the wedge support, which I've got currently in about the 505 to 506 area. That is a possibility. Do we have a topping pattern to get us there? We do not. And there's nothing particularly obvious. But if we close this open gap here, then I will be thinking that we may well make it down to that level here, and I'd quite like to see that made. In terms of IWM, at the moment, IWM, we are way above the daily middle band there too, and in fact we made a new all-time high yesterday. we'll see. Hourly chart, no current divergence. 15-minute chart, no current divergence either. But again, I've got a rising wedge support trend line that I'm wondering about being hit, and I've got that currently in about the 283.5 area. DAX, wondering about a flag here. Won't necessarily make it down into the lower low below 24k, but ideally would. Nikkei has been making new highs. I was mentioning this yesterday. I was wondering whether it would hit this trend line here, at the wedge resistance trend line, and it has hit it. Now, if we are going to see the next obvious move here, we'd then go down and touch this rising support trend line, which I've got currently in the 64,300 area, I think. So I'm going to be watching with great interest to see whether that gets hit and whether we continue forming this possible rising megaphone. So watching that with interest. No current negative divergence on the RSI 14 or the RSI 5 on the daily chart, although both of them look somewhat overbought. Looking at DX. DX has not really been delivering anything on the 60-minute sell signal. We've gone higher. We're over 101. This is a very promising sign for getting up into the 104, 105 area, and I'm thinking that has a very decent shot now. Looking at the other currencies, USD continuing down. GBP USD continuing down. No really obvious targets there. 60-minute buy signal has reached the possible near miss target here, and this looks very, very much like a bear flag here, which is about to break down lower. USD JPY still hasn't quite made it to 162. It's very, very close though. I'm thinking we're a short distance away. It doesn't necessarily need to stop there. I think I've got it clear up into about the 163.5 area, but it's this area here that I was thinking might not get done. Because I was thinking we might see government intervention. We will see. Looking at USD CAD, continuing higher at the moment, and I'm thinking this can go quite a lot higher. Australian dollar is continuing down towards the head and shoulder target, which I've got in the 68.75 area, and NZUSD is continuing down to the double top target, which I've got in the 56.30 area. So we shall see. Looking at ZB, this is probably topping out, I'm thinking, forming some kind of a pattern here. We've almost made it to the double top target here on ZN in the 109.04 area. I think this made it down to 109.06 yesterday, and maybe I could call it there, but just a little lower ideally. So I'm thinking both of these may be bear flags and setting up retests of these lows. If we are going to see oil go up a lot, and I'm coming to that next, then of course that would be the obvious thing to do. Are we going to see oil go up a lot? Well, we're seeing an odd market here, and I've got to say I was looking at Mr. Global, who's quite a good commentator on YouTube, yesterday, and his argument was actually that the oil traders have been screwed over so often by the administration that a lot of them just pulled out of the market for the time being. So volume is lower, and the market's really stopped reflecting expectations. So, and that could be right. Obviously, there were an awful lot of announcements from Trump, I think 38, 40, that the Iran war was won, and there were a lot of moves from there. And well-placed people who placed bets just before the announcement that Trump made, I don't know, billions, certainly many hundreds of millions. I think there was 800 million made on one trade. So, I mean, obviously, I think that probably has pissed the oil traders off. But I mean, and I think that's the reason, really, we're seeing oil under 80 at the moment. Are we looking at a possible rally, though? We've got a nice looking double bottom here on Brent crude, and I'm thinking we may see a rally from here. CL, very nice looking double bottom as well. Not really a nice one on HO. RBOB could be forming an IHS here, but it's not particularly pretty. NG. Not really the same as the others, but the sell signal has made the possible near miss target, and have we broken rising support? Sorry, my trend line's moved. Oh, I rolled Brent crude and natural gas into their next contract yesterday. Yeah, we've broken the rising support here. I am thinking overall, wow, my trend lines really have been moving overnight. Hang on. Sorry, bear with me a moment. This is always annoying. Okay. It's rather different from when I drew it yesterday. I had a much nicer resistance trend line then. Okay, I am wondering whether this is a bearish consolidation setting up a retest of this low. We'll see. Certainly, we had an IHS, it broke up. Now, it only actually failed when I moved this onto the August contract on NG, but this IHS here has broken up and it has failed. That obviously has a target at a retest this low, which would be the target if this is a bearish consolidation, setting up a retest of the low. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture on these. Now, looking at the Brent hourly chart, is this a nice looking double bottom? Yeah, peachy, nice. Sustained breakup over 82 would be looking for a target in about the 88 hour. And that actually would be proportionally a pretty modest rally. So I'm thinking we may see that. That would be slightly over 50% of this latest move down. In terms of WTIC, is it a nice looking double bottom? Yeah, definitely. It's nice. Does it have to break up? Well, we haven't actually got any buy signals here, really. These pretty much made target or made the possible near miss targets. We've got no meaningful positive divergence here on the daily chart on WTIC or Brent. But nonetheless, I'm thinking this might have a shot. We've got a little bit of weak positive divergence here, but we really needed a decent rally in between the two lows, and we might still be looking forward to getting one of those. Or it may be that if we see the rally that I'm talking about on the hourly charts here, then we see a low retest after that, and that is what gives us positive divergence on the daily chart. We'll see. But I am wondering about a rally here, and certainly in terms of the straightforward moves being opened up anytime soon, I'm not optimistic. The Iranians have closed it till Israel have pulled back from Lebanon. Trump is convinced that he can get them to do so. I do not share his confidence, but who can say? It's if he's successful, great. If he isn't successful, then chances are the Strait of Hormuz is going to stay closed, and that means TikTok. So even if we get a load of Iranian oil back out of the market, which would help, and likely extend the deadline of when we're going to see some serious trouble. In terms of heating oil, might well see a decent rally here. We don't have as good a nice double bottom here. We could form something else. IHS maybe at the neckline here up at 3.299. In terms of gas oil, we've already got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed, and it survived the last move down. We've broken up over wedge resistance here. Am I seeing a possible IHS forming? Well, it's not pretty, but yeah, potentially. We will see. But there are options, obviously, to form reversal patterns if we're going to get one. In terms of natural gas, we are failing currently at the 200 DMA, and this is a very, very, very obvious level to be failing at. I'd love to see a retest this high and then a dump. And I'm thinking we may well see that. All right, great. Let's have a look at the GC chart. GC chart, I was talking about the possibility that we were going to go and retest the low, and I'm still thinking that is very much a possibility, and we are considerably closer today. SI has pretty much already retested the low. In fact, I think we are currently doing the full retest as I speak. Can go a bit lower, of course. Palladium, not retesting the low yet. Platinum, very, 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 very close. Don't think it's quite managed it yet. Hang on. Why speculate when we can test the assumption? Only. I'm wrong. We've already retested it. So there, we got a potential double bottom already. On SI, we got a potential double bottom already. I'm wondering if the other two are going to retest their lows too. But actually, we have a couple of very decent reversal patterns if we reverse right here. So talking about HG, HG I think is just kicking around waiting for equities to give direction. I think we're pretty close to. Well, I think we've got a couple of reasons to think that we're going to see a decent top on equities soon. And I think as and when this happens, this is probably going to crater. In the short term, I am wondering whether this could be a bullish consolidation, setting up a last retest of the high. On the bigger picture charts, though, we do not need that retest. KC, we've seen a bit of a pullback here. 60-minute sell signal has reached the possible near miss target. This may just resume the uptrend here. We've seen some nice breaks up. We may well see that follow through. Sugar, I've been talking about for weeks. A possible retest of this low here at 13.8, and here it is. We've made it. This could be a support level, and I am wondering about a reversal back up here. If so, the first big sign of a reversal will be a break of this declining resistance trend line, currently in the 1435 area. CC is continuing higher at the moment. Have we failed the head and shoulders? We have. That head and shoulder target is no longer a target. So hang on, failed. Right, so that's failed now. I'm taking out the arrow. We may be returning to back up to retest the high. So we will see how that goes. Looking at lumber, lumber is continuing higher at the moment, even though we've got quite a lot of negative divergence, possible topping action. CT, this could be an IHS forming, but I have to say I'd rather see it head up into the 81.6 area and then pull back for a right shoulder, just below the monthly pivot. ZW maybe reversing back up. Corn maybe reversing back up. Possible IHS forming. Soy maybe reversing back up. No obvious reversal pattern. ZL, we've got a head and shoulders which is broken down with the target in the 65.50 area. And I'm thinking we may well be heading there next. Live cattle, I'm still looking for the retest of this high here in the 251.50 area. We've got close to it. We've got a possible short-term double top and a possible weak 6-minute sell signal break. So I am wondering if we do a retrace first, maybe back test the monthly pivot. HE, this looks like a short-term bear flag forming, maybe as part of a larger bottoming action. All right, great. Let's have a quick look at questions, of which we have none, in which case look out for a post. I'll have one out about lunchtime today. Everyone take care, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. All right, cheers.